I'm Charles Ritchie, and tonight I'm getting ready to take a stance on the issue of cannabis being allowed in sports. Cannabis, as you all recall, relates to the same categories as far as marijuana, tobacco. One of the things that people will argue about cannabis is how it's going to be allowed in sports. History has been proven that over the last 40 plus years, there's been a lot of athletes in sports. More in particular in football and physical sports like boxing, MMA, but especially the NFL, that there have been a lot of retired athletes or athletes playing their career who had careers shortened or after their playing days where they took in painkillers and they felt broken down. One of these many examples happens to be Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon, as you may recall, the former quarterback for the Chicago Bears, Super Bowl 20 champion, and also second-time Super Bowl champion with the Green Bay Packers later in his career. He went on to develop head trauma and brain issues. A lot of it with being shots to the head after taking hits. One of the things that has been more prominent and has been more come under scrutinized, especially this past decade, has been the amount of concussion impact, especially in the NFL. What they've been trying to do to try and safeten the game, they've been trying to enforce more stricter penalties, educate players onto be aware of the dangers and how to make proper tackling or be more awareness created. What happens as a result, especially particular with football, is that athletes are retiring earlier at a rapid rampage right now. And we looked at the studies within the past 15 years. And the study shows that it could be anywhere as low as from 201 statuses up to 275. So now, we look at it like what football is becoming. It is becoming to a point now where parents are fearful of their children playing the game of football. So when you look at it, especially when we go back to cannabis, and you look at the history of how it's been like smoking, marijuana, pot usage, how it's been utilized over time. The problem where we need to reconcile how can it be allowed in sports, because remember, we can't consider it technically as used as a competitive advantage versus like an illegal substance. But when you look at as far as where it's supposed to be more for medicinal purposes, where it's trying to be approved little by little. So far, 29 states have approved the use of cannabis. 9 of those states, however, is for both recreational and medicinal purposes. Former NBA Commissioner David Stern went on the record saying that they need to restructure the NBA collective bargaining agreement, being quoted as saying that they should restructure it, whereas they should allow the states that are allowing cannabis for players to use if they're in that state. The only problem is with that, it's not been fully approved. How do we approve it? Well, I got one solution. I would say what you should do is, since it's still being little by little trying to be pushed to be approved, I would say have at least the referee who's calling the game monitorize the usage, because it can get touchy if they're using it for medicinal purposes or recreational use, where it falls into a line of work profession, which causes concerns. They have a lot of sponsorships and work communities where they don't want to have a bad look end up happening. So, again, my solution is what you do is you have the officials monitorize it, because that's what it's all about, is monitorizing it. And I think the only part is, like I said, the opposing viewpoints in all this will be owners, because, like I said, they pride themselves in being good examples for the communities working with youth. But the other side of that coin is, if you're not going to shorten the turnaround times for players in football particularly, where you have a shortened schedule where you play a Sunday game and then 4 days later you play on a primetime game like Thursday Night Football, where the hits become more violent. If you're not going to help meet the players halfway, I think you need to consider doing that. Because guess what? They can show it could work for medical purposes, yes, there's still other sources to be looked into, but guess what? You don't have to be looking at it as a dying sport and because guess what? Kids are not going to be playing grammar, high school, college football. Sport we were changed to a whole different sport as we view it, or it'll cease to exist. So my point is, cannabis, have proper memorization, have the officials memorize it. I'm Charles Ritchie, and that's my stance I'm going to take on for this final project coming up in week 12.